Hello everybody, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful morning. Today we're going to be looking at temperatures, temperature anomalies, and then also we're going to be looking at where this cold air is coming from. And most of it is actually coming all the way up from the poles, from the North Pole, Siberia, and northern Canada. So it's very interesting how far south this cold air is coming. And it's only November. Who knows what's going to happen when it's January and February and it's 30 degrees below average. It's going to be some very cold temperatures for this time of year. Now, before we do get into it though, please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video when I upload. Now here's the National Weather Service currently, and you see we have winter weather advisories over in this purple, anywhere in the northwest, especially for North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Montana. Winter storm warnings in that pink, where you could be seeing around 6 inches of snowfall over north central Montana. And then we have air stagnation advisories and dense fog advisories over the northwest. Then as you move over to the interior northeast, you see winter storm watches posted up there for northern Vermont and interior parts of upstate New York, and that's associated with some snow, some lake effect, and also most of that actually coming in from that storm system that could be affecting those areas over the next about 24 to 48 hours. And then freeze warnings down in Georgia, South Carolina, and then another area of dense fog advisories over Oklahoma and Texas. Now here's your temperature anomalies from the European model. We're going to be looking at the European and GFS model here. Now here's currently what's happening over the East Coast. You have about 10 degrees below average, and you're going to see that cold air starts to move in by Monday, and then by Monday night, well below average over a good portion of the U.S. Then it continues to move further east by Tuesday. Tuesday night is when it's really cold, or about Tuesday afternoon, 30 degrees below average. Many areas nearing 30 degrees below average. A lot of areas 25 or more degrees below average, and this is the front has already passed. This is that storm system moving along with the front, and all that cold air is to the west of it, and that warm air off to sea in front of that system. And this front is one of the few fronts that actually passes through Florida. Recently, most of these fronts have been too far north to get Florida involved, but you're gonna see all the way down to southern Florida, you're gonna have below average temperatures, and that must feel like a relief for you guys down there. It's been 80, 90 degrees consistently. Now, as you continue, 30 degrees below average, around 35 degrees below average near the lakes. That's due to some snow cover, and that's going to be reflecting the sunlight and leading to some colder temperatures over those areas. And then it continues into Thursday morning, still 20 degrees below average over the east coast. Starts to taper off a little bit, still 20 degrees, 30 degrees below average over New England and the northeast. And then a little patch of about 15 degrees below average over the southeast. And then it starts to strengthen a little bit as you have this next next batch of cold air by Friday. But this is just gonna really just move in kind of like this, only really affecting Canada and the extreme north part of the U.S. Now, as we keep on going on, you see 30 degrees below average starting to become more consistent over parts of the interior New England, interior Northeast, and then into the Great Lakes. So colder air starts to build again, but really that colder air is starting to be a bit more suppressed as you have this big batch of warm air starting to build. And another unorganized front starts to kind of build, but it's not really going to amount to too much. So really nothing too big to worry about there, but it is going to bring warmer temperatures to the east coast by Tuesday next week. Now we're going to look at the GFS just to show that both of these models are showing this cold air coming into the U.S. So this would be for Monday morning. Now this is for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and you see really consistently cold over these areas. Now as you go into Friday and then Saturday, it starts to refuel over the interior northeast with very cold temperatures, about I would say about 30 degrees below average. This is in Celsius, by the way. The GFS is in Celsius. The European was in Fahrenheit, but the GFS is in Celsius. So even though this is only about 15 degrees below average on the map, that would still be about 30 degrees below average in Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit because it is in Celsius. Now it keeps on going, but then it starts to get a bit more suppressed just to the east coast, and a bit of warmth starts to build over the U.S. But that's definitely going to change as time goes on. This definitely could change. It could be the polar opposite, and could be very cold over those areas. We're really going to have to see where this front starts to position. Now, here's your temperatures from the European model. We're only going to look at the European model because both of the GFS and the European are fairly consistent, so fairly agreeing with each other. So I'm just going to show the European as they're showing pretty much the same thing. Here's your high temperatures for today, and you see over the northern U.S. about 20-30 degrees as a high. And then once you get about halfway down the U.S. And southward, you're going to be seeing about 60, 70, 80 degrees in some areas for your high temperature. Now, as you continue for Monday morning, as you're getting ready to go to work, negative temperatures for Montana, South Dakota, and Wyoming. And some of these aren't even in the higher elevations. Some lower elevations in the single digits and teens over much of the Midwest, and 20s for as you get a bit farther south, 30s for your low temperature over the Northeast, and then into the Southern Plains, and then into the Northwest, and then everywhere else is basically in the 40s and 50s, some 60s. Now here's your high temperature for Monday, and it's really going to warm up along the East Coast. It's going to be in the 60s all the way up until about New York City and southward. It's going to be in the 60s for your high temperature, or at least the upper 50s. Then you're going to be seeing some 30s, 20s, teens for your high temperatures over the Midwest. Now, as we continue, some negatives breaking out over the Midwest for your low temperatures on Tuesday morning. This would be for Tuesday afternoon, and you're seeing 20s for your high temperatures, but widespread about 40 degrees for your high temperature. And you see, this is your front passing through. Your front is passing through over these areas, and that's bringing that cold air behind it. So you really see a well-defined area where that front has already passed through. And some of these areas could actually be seeing the first snows of the season, about an inch, some of it actually accumulating over the coast. So definitely interesting there. We're not going to be covering that storm today, but if you do want to check that out, I did make a video on that yesterday. Now, as you see, we have 20 degrees for a low temperature on Friday, on Wednesday, I mean, and single digits over some areas as you're getting out to go to school and work. Now, for Wednesday afternoon, high temperatures are going to be in the 30s and 20s, some teens over the Northeast, Great Lakes, and Northern Plains. And then for Thursday morning, you're going to be seeing 20s and teens over the Northeast, and some areas in the single digits and below zero. And then areas over the Midwest, Great Lakes, going to be in the 20s, and then the Rocky Mountains going to be in the 20s, teens, and single digits in those higher elevations. Now for Thursday afternoon, high temperatures in the 30s and 20s over the Great Lakes, Midwest, and Northeast. Once you get about south of there, you're going to be in the 40s and 50s. Some areas seeing 60s, 70s, and 80s, especially for California, Nevada, Arizona, and then also for Florida. Now, this is your final day that we're going to show the temperatures. We're going to go about 5 days out, and this would be for Friday morning. Low temperatures in the 20s and teens over a good portion of the northern half of the U.S. And then as you go to your high temperatures are going to be in the 40s, 50s, and some 30s over the northern U.S. Now we're going to look at where this cold air is coming from, and we're going to look at your 850 HPA temperature anomalies, and this is basically showing your temperature anomalies in the higher portions of the atmosphere, and it's really going to show you where all these fronts are coming from. So we're going to zoom out to the North America, to the entire view. So here's Alaska, here's Canada right here, here's the United States, and down there is Mexico, just to give you a bit of bearings. Now all your cold air is centered right here over parts of Canada, and you're having a bit of ridging, so that's going to make the jet stream with this warmer air, it's going to make this jet stream kind of wavy, and it's going to make the polar jet stream very inconsistent, very wavy. And when that happens is when you get that polar vortex to kind of erupt and goes south. So here you see this air originally, if you went to past model runs, this cold air originated up here, and now it's making its way farther south, all the way into the Midwest, and eventually into the Northeast. As you can see, all this cold air is starting to move, and then it starts to kind of look where this cold air comes. It goes up, and then it kind of circulates back around. So you have pretty much an infinite flow of all this cold air over the eastern U.S., and then eventually this will most likely get broken. Eventually, but it doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime too soon. Anyways, guys, please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications if you did enjoy that video. Anyways, that was Eli the Weather Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.